Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV. Once again, we're back with Brother Alexis Bonello on the topic of Pope Benedict in Regensburg. Our first video has been watched 1,200 times, so I thought let's do another video recording to get more info about this. Welcome, Brother Alexis.
Thank you, AJ. Always glad to be on Order Militaris Radio TV.
So, reading up on this, in the updates, the Diocese of Regensburg mentioned Regensburg is a free state. What is that?
I think because Regensburg is a city, I mean to say it's a city that's open to people. It's not subject to control by someone else, and I think there's a hint there because it's just been announced in the German press that Benedict's returning to the Vatican tomorrow. Well, that just doesn't make sense, and let me explain why. We already have 8 reasons to argue that Benedict went to Regensburg without Bergoglio's permission. No announcement was given to leading journalists here at the Vatican of the impending voyage, which is a standard Vatican practice months in advance. He sought the help of Gianni, the former head of the Vatican police, who was ousted by Bergoglio for his daring raid on the Secretary of State's corrupt real estate investment office. And Gianni is so disgraced with Bergoglio, there's no way Bergoglio would have given him a leading role in this. The use of the Italian secret police and Italian military aircraft without any public notice in the Italian papers, which is unheard of because it's not like the Pope was fleeing the advancing army and therefore they had to be secret. All these things leak out. It wasn't even leaked out by the Italian military or the Italian state police, which is a very unusual thing. As soon as he lands on the ground, the Diocese of Regensburg issued a statement saying that he had no immediate or definitive plans to return to the Vatican. He wanted to spend the last days of his brother's life at his side. Bild Zeitung newspaper in Germany said there was even doubt that he would ever return to the Vatican. There was speculation in Regensburg that he would remain in the city and it would be an honor to have him reside there for the rest of his life. Then, all of a sudden, on Saturday, Bergoglio's nuncio to Germany arrives in Regensburg, allegedly to publicly display that Pope Benedict had approved of this. Well, that makes no sense because if Pope Bergoglio had approved of this, because if Bergoglio had approved of this, his nuncio would have been on the ground when the plane landed. So it was clear they didn't know what was going on and no one had Bergoglio informed of it. So that's pretty much sign that those are the 7 points that would argue that Benedict fled the Vatican secretly and got out and somehow convinced Ganswein and a few people to listen to him, okay? But now the story's changed. Benedict's going back to the Vatican on Monday. So the German announced that he will return, but it didn't announce who made this decision. And this statement contradicts nearly every press release since today because we were told that the press was told not to disturb His Holiness with photos or interviews because he wants to spend the last days of his brother's life together. Well, did his brother die today? No. Okay, is his brother dying tomorrow? No. So why isn't he allowed to spend the last days of his life with his brother? Why is the press the threat and not the fact anyone wants to take him away from Regensburg? Okay, so the whole thing switched around. The press is a threat only to Bergoglio if the truth comes out. And this whole trip to Regensburg confirms that everyone recognizes that Benedict is the true Pope, because the Italian state in law cannot use its secret police nor its military aircraft to give free rides to cardinals or bishops or priests in the Vatican to go to any other country they want to. They can only do that for a head of state. Not only that, Germany could not allow an Italian military aircraft into their airspace without the highest approval of the chancellor, and that would only be for a head of state. So it's pretty clear that everyone recognized he's the head of state. You can see by the crowds that gathered almost immediately in Regensburg around him that he's treated as a head of state, even as he goes down the street to visit his brother. Bergoglio didn't like it. So he sent his nuncio, and his nuncio, devious little person that is, rather than say it publicly, told him to get back to the Vatican. Why don't you come out and publicly say it? No, you won't, because you're a creep, you're a crook, and you're a mafioso, and you're trying to imprison the Pope. It's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah. Yeah. He also actually, from the news reports on the Regensburg website, Pope Benedict went back to his actual hometown to visit and pay his respects to his mom, dad, and I think sister.
Yeah, he visited the grave of his parents, which was actually moved from its original place closer to Regensburg. So, and he visited the house where he was a professor. So I don't think it's his hometown, but I think his residence when he was a professor at Regensburg. So, well, that doesn't fit the narrative either, because if he went only to Regensburg just to be with his brother, why is he visiting his parents' grave and stuff like that? So it's pretty clear that Benedict had a lot more to do with this trip to Germany than Bergoglio, and Bergoglio is upset. Now Bergoglio spent 3 days swearing and screaming at everyone in the Vatican, and he's finally figured out that Benedict running free around Europe is a threat to his regime, his house of lies, because eventually someone's going to come and speak to him and find out that he never resigned the papacy. It was a complete farce from the beginning. It was a coup d'etat. It was a complete media-controlled event to make us believe he had, when he hadn't. That Latin statement does not mean I resign the papacy. And it says it right in the beginning in the Latin. I'm here to announce the decision you have made. So it's clearly that he was probably told to say that statement. And they've kept him prisoner for 7 years, and they have been manipulating every press release and everything that comes out to prevent him from saying to the world the truth, and the world finding out from him. There are long lists of cardinals and bishops and personal friends who have not been allowed to talk to him. And the ones who are not allowed to discuss February 2013. And Ganswein is the chief mafioso there, screams at everyone over the phone like a maniac, don't you dare raise this topic. I mean, that's what he told me. I mean, who does this man think he is? The Pope has the right to liberty, and all Christendom should do something about it. Wars were fought to liberate popes in ancient times. And at this point, I don't see there's really any other way except military force. I think Catholics in the United States especially should insist with President Trump that Benedict have the liberty to go where he wants to go. Otherwise, he should threaten both Italy and the Vatican with a military invasion, because the Pope has the right to go where he wants to go. He has the human rights of a human citizen. We have seen the most grave violation of the human liberty of Pope Benedict XVI. Undeniable. Not even allowed to visit his brother in his final days. I mean, how cruel can you be? That's imprisonment. Anyone out there who says that those of us Catholics who said he's in prison are lunatics, the facts now just show that they are the idiots. They are the fools. They are the ones who have bought into the lie, and now the lie has no clothes on it. Because if Benedict's not a prisoner, then he should be able to stay in Regensburg until his brother dies and say the funeral mass for him. But no, they're pulling him back like a yo-yo to the Vatican because he is a prisoner and he is being controlled. Those people around Benedict need to be arrested and removed. Benedict needs to be liberated by military force. And one of the Western powers needs to insist with Italy. Italy is a very weak government, little pressure, and it will look the other way. The Vatican has no substantial military force. Something needs to be done. This is just absolutely outrageous. As a Catholic, as a Franciscan, you can see I'm visibly upset. This is just absolutely intolerable from every point of view.
Yeah. Thoughts came into my mind when I read he visited his parents' grave, and I was like, you know how easy it would have been just to walk up to him, politely as you're supposed to do in the graveyard, and just approach him like, Your Holiness, do we have a talk?
Yeah, that's what Bergoglio He fears that anyone speaks to Benedict outside of the control of Ganswein and his entourage. And if he's fearing that, that's because Benedict is going to say something that we haven't heard him say. What we've been told he said and wrote and everything, that's all controlled him. Look at the hissy fit that Bergoglio and his minions had in January when Cardinal Sarah published a book on the celibate priesthood. And it's like, how did he do that? We don't know that Benedict wrote anything. And Ganswein was raked over the coals and wasn't seen anywhere near Bergoglio for months because he allowed Benedict to write something freely, okay? So that's the level of control, and it's been going on from the beginning. And so that means Benedict has been a prisoner from the beginning. He has been controlled. He might have been drugged. He's certainly now, the other breaking news story today is there's a person in his entourage. I will, let me go to that article, who's a known psychological manipulator, okay? This person in his entourage was denounced publicly on Twitter today. This is not any statement coming from Rome. This is not, I am not saying this person is a manipulator. I'm just saying that Dr. Reisinger, okay, Dr. Doris Reisinger, she has a PhD in philosophy, a master's in theology. This woman is not just, you know, a conspiracy theorist. This woman says that the woman in Pope Benedict's entourage is a known manipulator, psychological manipulator, control freak, okay? Here is a testimony of Dr. Doris Reisinger, okay, published on Twitter, okay? I think just last night or this morning. The woman accompanying Benedict XVI in this photo is not a nurse, as this is because in public reports, it said that this person is a nurse. She's not a nurse. Her name is Christine Felder, and she is a member of the spiritual family known as Das Werk, the Work. For years, she was my superior, my novice master, and my spiritual advisor in personal union. She determined which priests I should confess to, which hairstyle I was allowed to have. Sometimes she even cut my own hair. What I was allowed to read, and if and when I was allowed to speak with my parents. And I had to write her weekly reports, I guess, of her own behavior. I have never suffered so much under any person in my life as under this woman. She abandoned me when I told her about this being stalked by a brother, okay? She yelled at me when I told her about this abuse. She did much worse to other young sisters than she did to me. As far as I know, she's never been held responsible. Yet the Vatican has known about her since 2012 at the latest. And yet she seems to be in a leading position at the work to this day. And then she refers to the picture. You can go to From Rome and see the picture of this person. And this Dr. Doris Reisinger on Twitter gives her public address, invites anyone to contact her, okay? And I published the actual photograph of her tweets. So if the Vatican knew this woman is a control freak in 2012 and assigned her to Pope Benedict, it's obvious she's part of a prison control system, okay? Psychologically control system, which is even more evil, okay? That's something that the state, that secret police do. That's something that Nazis do, okay? I mean, I can tell you, bishops, clergy, monks, we would never employ such means. So that means there is some involvement of some state secret police, of some entity, of some other country that advised Bergoglio to do this right early on. And that means there is in doubt everything that Benedict said since February 2013, that he has probably been under control, and maybe a lot of what he's alleged to have said while Pope was manipulated by Ganswein. But if Ganswein is allowing that creep around the Pope, then Ganswein is a lot more evil than even Vigano claimed he is, okay? And I couldn't believe it when Ganswein threatened me over the phone, and he used a burner phone, okay? That's what mafia do. They use burner phones. Have the integrity when you threaten someone to pick up the phone like a man, okay? So now we have two extremely dubious figures around Pope Benedict and his enemies. That's imprisonment. That's manipulation. That is the worst kind of deceptive, evil, malign, manipulative, political manipulation you can imagine. That would be as if President Trump had Barack Obama in a state prison and not allowed him to speak to anyone. You imagine the outcry there would be in the world? It would never be tolerated. Why is it tolerated with Pope Benedict? Why does Bergoglio get the pass?
Yeah. So that lady forces whatever type of haircut she feels like that person should have. Remember those photos of those awful haircuts of Pope Benedict?
Exactly. So that woman is the one that does Pope Benedict's hair. She obviously hates him because his hair is always in a bad condition. Okay. And that goes along with everything I just said. So a person like that shouldn't be anywhere near the Pope. The people around the Pope should be the kind of people who, if the Pope says, I want to go to Greece, they immediately call the travel agent and arrange the things. If the Pope says, I'd like to have apple strudel from Vienna, they immediately call up a bakery in Vienna and have it flown out. That's the kind of people who should be around the Pope, not people who are known control freaks, okay? So, but that fits perfectly with Bergoglio's character. Bergoglio is an absolute nasty, foul-mouthed control freak. There's even pictures of him yelling at other people. He started his career as a bouncer, and the biggest mistake he made was to change his career, okay? Because that's the kind of man he is. And a person like that, it likes controlling everyone around him. Unless you're strong, you don't. So I think developments here at Regensburg have confirmed what many of us have said for years now. And something the heads of state of Europe and of the United States, of the whole world, need to speak out. Because if they tolerate what Bergoglio is doing to Benedict, then their successor in power can do the same thing to them, okay? So this is a matter of the rights of a head of state, or whether you consider he's head of state or foreign state. You cannot treat someone like this. This is inhumane. This is a violation of the UN Charter of Human Rights. This is a violation of every sense of decency and honesty, liberty and freedom. It's just totally unacceptable.
Before we go, what more do you know of this cult that this lady was put into, that this doctor lady who just exposed the person in the photo?
I'm not certain, but as far as I understand, the handmaids of the Lord, who have been the women assigned to care for Pope Benedict in the last 7 years, are a community founded in the area of Milan, maybe 20, 30 years ago. And they were put by Bergoglio under apostolic visitation some years ago because they were being run by control freaks. So how is it that one of the control freaks of the community he assigns to Benedict? Now, I'm a member of a former community for Franciscan Friars of the Immaculate, and we had problems with superiors who were control freaks. Not at that level though, but that was close to it. And Bergoglio put them under apostolic commission. So why is control freak for you wrong, but control freak for me is okay? You see the double angle here? It's wrong for these communities to have control freaks running them, but it's not wrong for me to assign a control freak to make sure Benedict is doing what he's supposed to do. There's absolutely no rational explanation of this other than utter corruption. Okay, utter corruption. And so I would urge Catholics in every country to insist with their heads of state or their ministries of foreign affairs that they make loud protests for the violation of Pope Benedict's human rights, that complaints were written. If you're a lawyer, write a complaint to the UN Committee for Human Rights. Demand that Pope Benedict have the liberty of movement and freedom to choose people around him. Demand that these dubious people be removed from his presence. And if you're from the United States, I would use every means possible to contact the President of the United States and have him insist that Benedict has the liberty of movement and that these people of control be removed from his presence. And I think it's pretty clear that it's not safe for Benedict to stay at the Vatican anymore. It's pretty clear that that's hostile territory. And I think if anyone has any sense of human dignity for human rights, any head of state has any thought of what will happen to him after he leaves power, he better right now take strong action and say, no, Benedict's not going back on Monday. Benedict's going to stay in Regensburg as long as Benedict wants to. And I don't want to see Ganswein or this Christine's face anywhere near Benedict anymore, nor Vatican police. It has to be people he chooses of his own, whether he and his brother or his friends in Regensburg. It can't be people on the pay of Bergoglio of the Vatican. So that's what I urge you to do, and take this very seriously. This is very seriously. This level of control is used by people who, when they can't have control, they will murder, they will poison, they will open up brains and cut out parts of the mind so that the people are just vegetables. This is that level. This is Nazi level of wickedness here. This is Nazi level.
Yeah. Let's see, in America, Attorney General Barr is an Irish Catholic. I think Mike Pompeo is an Italian Catholic.
Okay, so Pompeo has to be written. He's Secretary of State, but Trump you have to get to Trump directly, maybe through his wife. Protests have to be made immediately. This cannot be allowed to endure. Benedict is within hours of going back to prison, and who knows what will happen to him then. You can be sure of this, that if he left without Bergoglio's permission, when he comes back, that face of Benedict, which looks already to have suffered extreme trauma, is going to get beaten. He's going to be beaten to death. He's going to be tortured and beaten to death for what he did, because Bergoglio is a psychotic madman, okay? He's a psychotic dictator and madman, and we cannot let Benedict go back to the Vatican. We must do everything to the risking of our own lives that he remain free, okay? He is the Holy Father, and he has the right. And even if you don't think he's the Holy Father, he's a human being, and he has the right to liberty. This is a human rights question of the first importance right now, the most important thing in the human rights case in the whole world.
Okay.
And finally, I ask everyone to pray. In Acts of the Apostles, we see that when Peter was held prisoner, the whole church prayed, and our Lord sent an angel to deliver him. Peter is being held a prisoner now. It's obvious to the whole world. We need to pray that our Lord send angels to liberate the Holy Father, because whether they're heads of state or security forces or individuals with daring, that's what we have to pray for, because the Holy Father is being held prisoner.
What airport would they fly back into?
I don't know. He's going to take a private plane, or is he? I doubt the Italian government's going to get involved in this, because that means if Conti authorizes a military plane to take him back to prison, he becomes guilty of international kidnapping, okay, which is a charge against him under the Hague. So I would imagine he's going to try to do it by a private company, but even a private company will become liable for kidnapping, okay? So I warn anyone out there, any head of state, any military police personnel, any company involved in getting Benedict back to the Vatican, you are all going to be guilty for kidnapping. And if I ever have any say about it, I will see that you were all prosecuted and put in prison, okay? I will be an advocate of that for my rest of my life, because this is absolutely intolerable. President of Ordo Militaris, Inc., we are an organization dedicated to the defense of persecuted Christians, and this, Benedict, is a persecuted Christian. This is what we call persecution. And so I urge everyone to pray, but I urge you to take swift action, any possible way. Spend the next 24 hours awake doing something to get Benedict's liberty defended, okay? This cannot be allowed to happen. So if you're a German citizen, you insist immediately with the Reich Chancellorship that this not be allowed to happen, okay? If you are in Regensburg, you should insist with the mayor that this not be allowed to happen, that Benedict should be allowed, as he stated, to stay until his brother pass away. He has that right. That is a fundamental human right. He can, if he is retired, the Vatican has no right to insist that he come back to the Vatican. And if he's the Pope, the Vatican has no right to tell him what to do. So there is no reason that the nuncio should have demanded that he return, and there's no reason that he should be forced to go back. None whatsoever. And if he said on Thursday that he was going to spend time with his brother until his brother passed away, but now he says he's going back tomorrow, he's obviously under psychological control, and we should not believe it. Okay.
All right, everyone, contact your heads of state, your representatives, whatever they are in your country. Let me see. What time is it over there in Germany?
It's currently 2:30 in the afternoon. One thing Germans can do is they should immediately go to court and get an injunction. Sue every company that's involved in this, okay? Have a judge put down a court order against the state police in Germany, against the Malteser order, against all airlines operating out of Bavaria, a court injunction that they do not move Pope Benedict until this situation is clarified. And I don't know anything about German law, but in the US we'd call that an injunction. Rush to court and file it, because this is a human rights violation. And I'm sure even in Germany, you can't move someone around without their consent. You can't manipulate elderly people like this. Okay, so Germany has to now show itself that it is not an heir of their Third Reich under Hitler, and it is going to allow the Pope the liberty of action and not to be treated like a pawn to be moved around, okay? And if they don't act for the sake of someone who was once a German citizen, they disgrace themselves as a government in sight of the whole world if they allow him to be taken back against his will or manipulated to think that he has to. No reason for him to go back. Okay, thank you, AJ. Been glad to talk to you and this update on the state of the Pope. And I encourage everyone to share this video on all social media. This is an absolute necessity. We get the word out and have people understand how serious the current situation is.
Yep. And please go to Ordo Militaris Radio.tv, Ordo Militaris Radio TV, BORDO-MILITARIS.net. Support us there. Become a monthly member. Buy some merch at our Teespring store. And thank you for watching. And this is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Day is Volt.
Day is Volt.